Chapter 23, Episode 6. Karla and Karl arrived at the farm of Artemis relatively early in the morning. Karla had milked the goats a few times and helped gather eggs and feed the chickens. The chickens had a coop inside a large fenced-off area. The fence was mostly to keep predators out. Artemis let the chickens run around the yard if she was there to watch over them. Chickens were sitting ducks. They were good feeding for many different mammals and big birds. There was a 57 Chevy in the fenced-off area, no engine or transmission, lots of space for chickens to hide from airborne enemies. Artemis showed Karl where the grain was for the chickens. I throw them almost anything. They aren't fussy. If a chicken doesn't seem to want to get off her egg, which happens sometimes, just lift her gently. She'll squawk, but they won't bite. How many eggs do you usually get? 2 or 3 a day, sometimes none. What do you do with the eggs? Eat them. I like omelets. They went over to the goats. The goats are very friendly. I usually talk to them when I'm milking them. It's also a good idea to give them a couple apples. Drop them in here. Nellie always goes first. So what do? Take a nipple in both hands and squeeze from top to bottom. It ain't like your dick, no need to pull on it. Karl gave Karla a look. Just saying. Artemis put her hands over Karl's to show him the motion. He felt a little awkward about getting an erection with his hands on the nipples of a goat. He milked Beatrice on his own. They feed themselves. They'll wander off, but they always come back. You can call for them. They aren't allowed in the garden. They know it, but they might not know that you know it. Just yell at them. Seems easy enough, so I need to be here early in the morning and in the evening to close up the chickens. You can be here whenever you want. You can sleep in the hammock outside or my bed. The full farm experience. If you're in the barn at night, don't let the owls alarm you. And don't get freaked out by the ghouls and goblins that live in the forest. Artemis made a big batch of scrambled eggs with onions and chives and tomato. Karl watched her. He knew that the butter and cheese were made by Artemis, but it still astounded him to see it all happen. The first taste of the cheese was a little surprising, but he realized how good it was on the second try. There was no bread. He figured it was because Artemis hadn't got around to making a mill. But there were potatoes and sweet potatoes fried in goat butter. After breakfast, they went for a tour of the barn, the workshop part of it. Karl had heard that Artemis was good with her hands from Karla, but he was still very impressed. The bows are arranged from 17 to 63 pounds. Karl touched a few just to be certain they were real, but didn't pick any up. His eye was caught by the old tractor. He could tell it had not been neglected. 64 John Deere. I'm not sure what year, but that sounds about right. Karl went over to inspect it. He didn't know much about tractors, but he understood old. There was something almost magical about things from before when he was born, even if his parents weren't quite that old. Old engines had so few moving parts, hardly any electrics. After a good visit to the barn, they headed out to Artemis' favorite fishing spot. She took her fishing spear. Karl had been fishing often, but he had always used a pole, the normal way, with a line and a hook, and a worm on it, or a lure. He thought about asking if he could bring his own rod, but couldn't imagine why he couldn't. He just would. Unless Artemis could teach him to spearfish.